So we could have good lessons so from the presentations today. So I think all the speakers. First, Professor Kood so gave a brief but informative introduction to the financial education in the U.S. So personally, I like the U.S. system. My first impression is that the United States has a good system for the nationwide financial education. Relatively appropriate education content and resources are provided for the generations in different life cycle stages. It's okay. This is the causal relationship among financial education, financial literacy, and financial well-being. So financial education enhances financial literacy, and in turn, it also give rise to financial well-being. Okay, but these expectations as we have is the research agendas of so many researchers in this field. Today, the following presentations is by Professor Nicolini and Professor Park and Professor Say, and those presentations were about the relationship between financial education and financial literacy, and especially the professors say is referred to the relationship between financial literacy and financial well-being. It's okay. As I think that the most important thing is that how to define those terms, so particularly financial literacy and financial well-being. Okay, so people also have different definitions about those terms. So some empirical studies is just maybe different. So because they have different definitions and different approaches, so the result is also maybe is just quite different so from each other. So I'd like to make comments on the difficulties of assessing financial literacy and financial well-being. Can you see this? So there are two ways. So usually there are two ways of assessing the effect of financial education. Two different approaches. So approach one is assessing the same person or the same group of homogeneous people as before and after financial education. And so the other approach is assessing two different groups, so treatment group and control groups, so with or without financial education. So for the first approach, so let A be the initial level of financial literacy, so measured before taking financial education. Okay, so as A becomes A prime is after taking financial education. Okay, A prime is the changed level of financial literacy, so financial capabilities measured after taking financial education. So in this approach, so we can see the difference between A and A prime. Okay, that is the goal of this approach. But there are some difficulties in this approach. So number one is financial the only influential factor here? Is so maybe some other inflation factors may intervene. Okay? So for this particular study, empirical study, so we need to consider these difficulties so very carefully. So the first question is that, and the second question is about time. So time really matters. Okay, so how long, also so how much time does it take for financial education to make some positive or expected effect? Okay, so it may take long. So but how much time? Okay, so we assess the financial education level, so before and after financial education, but how much time should we wait? So when to assess is an important issue to be discussed before evaluation. As many empirical studies should consider these problems. In the second approach, treatment and control, as A prime is the changed level of financial literacy is after taking financial education, and B is the control group, the level of financial literacy without taking financial education. So now we compare these two groups as A and B. But in this approach, we still have some difficulties. So number one is are A and B is homogeneous? That is, so B should have the same level of a financial education initially. Okay, is accepting this, the problems becomes the first approach. A becomes A prime. Okay, it's now in this approach, approach 2. So B is initially the same as A. Okay, so we can compare as A prime and B. This comparison is the same that between A and A prime. Okay, so the empirical study should be designed as considering these difficulties and these relationships, and number 2, time still matters, because A prime is the changed level of financial literacy after financial education. So how long does it take for financial education to make some effects? So there are two approaches like this, and the other thing is the definitions of the keywords, financial literacy and financial well-being. In the previous presentation of mine, I quoted this as OECD. OECD's definition of financial literacy. Financial literacy is a combination of awareness, knowledge, skill, attitude, and behavior. So awareness and knowledge are so mostly the same. So typically there are four aspects of financial literacy. Number one is knowledge, so awareness and knowledge. And number two is skills. And number three is attitudes. And number four is behavior. So, so these four components of financial literacy are important. And so we need to measure all the as a component of financial literacy to see the causal, to demonstrate the causal relationship among financial education, financial literacy, and financial well-being. And so we should correctly define financial literacy and financial well-being, and then so we should measure those four aspects of financial literacy in an appropriate manner. That is important, I think. And the last thing is about how to assess. So there are four different aspects of financial literacy, but as for me, I'd like to put some more weight on behavior and application. So because as even if some people are well educated or have higher level of financial literacy, they may fail to make a desirable decision in the actual decision-making situation. So even in Korea, as I heard the report, even lawyers may be victims of financial fraud. So financial literacy, so here the fundamental question arises. Financial literacy, is financial literacy is effective, and is financial literacy is really important in reality? As that question arises, so because we see so many situations in reality, is many people and well-educated people so fail to make so desirable financial decisions. So behavioral aspect is more important, I think. So in assessing financial literacy, so behavior and application and those aspects should be well measured and assessed, and that is important, I think. So okay, that's it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And